Is it reasonable to reject someone religious who was addicted to pornography in the past? I think everybody suffers from different types of abuses and they fall into different types of sins. And when it comes to issues, whether it be pornography, whether it be substance abuse, drugs, alcohol, etc., it's going to be up to the individual on whether they decide to marry that person if a person has a past of falling into a particular sin. So for example, a person might have been a thief, a person might have been a highway robber, a person might have been engaged, right, and maybe even in prostitution. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and our children. It's your choice, right? Nobody's going to force you to marry this individual. Nobody's going to tell you that you must, or that some people might say, oh, well, you should be forgiving and you should do this. Sure, I agree with that. But at the end of the day, what an individual does in their forgiveness is between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As far as marriage is concerned, then that's completely up to you, right? If you choose to marry and you choose to engage with this person, that is completely your prerogative. It has nothing to do with your forgiveness. Why do I need to forgive this person for their sin? You understand what I'm saying? Right, if this person's committing the sin, why do I need to forgive them? Their forgiveness is not in my hands. That's something that they themselves have to seek. Now, whether it's alcohol, whether it's lying, whether it's cheating, backbiting, or even in this case of pornography, that's between them and their Lord. Right? They need to figure that out. That's not something for me to figure out. Now, if I want to be in a position where I want to help them, right, and I want to aid them with that, I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. But is it for everyone? Maybe some of us cannot deal with that, right? There are certain things that we as individuals, it's difficult for us to manage and it's difficult for us to handle. I will tell such people like, okay, hey, listen, is this going to be a problem for you in your marriage? Meaning that every time you look at this person, that's what you're going to remember. And if that is the case, don't marry that person. It's just going to be adab, right? Every time you look at this person, there's going to be spite, there's going to be hatred, there's going to be anger, there's going to be malice. And if that's what you're going to be walking into that relationship, don't do it. Like, just don't get married, right? Marriage is a choice. You don't have to marry that person. And don't put that person in a position where you're constantly reminding them of their past and what they did. That's one scenario. The second scenario, and this is something that a lot of people don't like talking about, is a scenario of projection. Why are you mad at this person? Because you yourself have committed the sin. Right? That's also something to consider. We have a lot of people and a lot of individuals be like, well, I can't deal with someone who did this. And a lot of times when you do a little bit of exploration, you'll find that they have that same problem. You'll find that they have that same issue. And that becomes more of an issue of forgiving ourselves, right? It's less about forgiving the other person, it's more about forgiving myself. And for the sin and what I have fallen into and the shortcomings that I have and the things that I have done. So I think there are a lot of important elements to this. Number one, am I forgiving of myself? And if I'm able to forgive myself, it becomes a lot easier for me to be forgiving in the relationship. Again, it's not my job to forgive this person. That's between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is not my position. I'm not here to judge that. I'm not here to determine that. What an individual does in their time, they need to be accountable for that. If that affects me, then that is a problem and that's an issue. And can pornography affect a marriage and a relationship? 100%. There's no doubt about it. You're talking about rights not being given, and especially for males, you can have erectile dysfunction, you can have other issues, right? When you go and engage with your wife, like, you're not going to be able to perform. These cause major problems and major issues in the marriage. And for those individuals that are suffering with this problem and are suffering with this issue, seek help. This is something that requires it, because this is something that's going to destroy your marriage. If a wife cannot seek intimacy from her husband, where does she go? If a husband cannot seek intimacy from his wife, where does he go? Right? Is not one of the purposes of marriage to guard our chastity? How am I going to guard my chastity if the person that I'm guarding it with is not helping me provide that? And unfortunately, this is a problem in a lot of marriages. There are a lot of sexless marriages. There are a lot of marriages where the couple is not being intimate. It needs to be solved. Otherwise, it will only lead to fitna, it will only lead to fasad. Like I said, if one of the purposes of marriages was for me to protect my chastity, and I'm unable to fulfill my desire, is that marriage serving that purpose? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and our families. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.